I want to take you through what I think are the three most important patterns on the guitar neck that can help you navigate chord progressions. They connect to arpeggios and scales and chord shapes, and this can provide a guidepost system for you to expand your understanding across the entire neck and to be able to move across the neck in one key, as well as follow any chord progressions by using these chord positions as guideposts. So I call these the big three chord shapes, and I'm going to show you those, followed by 3 exercises: 1 to cover arpeggios, 2 to cover the chord shapes you can derive from these big patterns, and then 3, the way I look at scales by using notes that surround chord shapes in order to have a more functional way to play patterns over actual musical situations. So I'm going to show the big 3 patterns in arpeggio form in the key of A. So I'm going to start here with shape 1, which is, I call it shape 1 because it's the root position shape. I'm starting from A on the 6th string, and I'm making a triad, and I'm playing each note as close as it can be to the next note of the triad, so I'm not skipping any notes in the triad. So I'm going 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. I've got A, C sharp, E, that's my 1, 3, 5 in the key of A, then A, C sharp, E. And so what this is a full 6-string shape that takes me through the A major chord without skipping any notes, so I don't have any gaps here. So I can use this for creating chords, for playing scales, connected to chords, and then also for just playing arpeggios. So I'm going to show you the next 2, and then I'll go into more detail about how you can practice these. The next one is first inversion. It's going to start from the 9th fret of the 6th string, which is C sharp. It's the 3rd of the A major chord. So I'm going to go up a first inversion triad here, and then I'm going to go up the next octave, another first inversion triad. So I've got the first octave, the second octave of this major triad. So again, I can make all these chords out of it. There's all these nice scale patterns that surround the notes and the chords, and of course I can play it as arpeggios and add scales and chords in order to combine those 3 fundamental ways of playing notes, the scales, chords, and arpeggios, into musical patterns. The third one of the big 3 is starting on E at the 12th fret of the 6th string, and this is going to be second inversion. It's starting at the 5th of the chord, so it goes 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Again, we have 2 triads that we stack on top of each other without skipping any notes. And that creates our third shape, which is second inversion, because it has the 5th on bottom. If I go up, invert it up one more time, I get back to the first shape I started with. I'm just an octave up now. I'm going to put on the metronome, and then I'll go through them slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. First inversion. Second inversion. Then if I go up one more time, like I said, I'm at the octave of the original shape. Now I'll show you 3 ways to practice these that can incorporate them into the different important techniques of playing any instrument, which is scales, chords, and arpeggios. Obviously there are other important techniques like rhythm and things like that, but these are the most fundamental when you're learning new patterns. So chords, scales, and arpeggios. So I'll start with chords, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out 3 note pieces of these big shapes in order to create triads on each string set. So I'm going to start with strings 1 through 3. And I've got 2nd fret on the 3rd string, 2nd fret on the 2nd string, and then the open 1st string. This is a root position A major triad. Root position because the A is the lowest note. If I move down, I've got this familiar shape, which is just the same that we play in a regular A major chord. It's a second inversion triad if we just play these 3 notes. 5, 1, 3. Then if we go down to the next string set, strings 5, 4, and 3, we've got a first inversion, A major triad, 3, 5, 1. If we go down one more time, we've got a root position again. So if I go through those, I can play 4 different triads that are close together like this, using 3 notes at a time. Those are my 4 3-note triads. I could make 4-note triads out of these big shapes. I could play that shape, which is now a second inversion, even though with an extra note on top. I have that one, which is a first inversion, and then I have this one. And then I could also play 5-note shapes, or 5-string shapes, same thing. And these aren't very, these shapes are not very practical to play as a full shape of all 6 strings. The point is to take out these pieces that you can use in different ways. One more way that I'll show you that you can break up these big 3 patterns is with spread or wide interval triads. So if I play string 5, 3, and 1, I've got a nice first inversion wide interval triad where I'm skipping strings in order to make this sound. That is really a nice sound. And then if I do that again, I can do it on strings 6, 4, and 2. So these are some nice spread or wide interval triads. I'll go through the other 2 shapes now doing the same thing. So first I'll just go in 3-note pairs, or 3-note sets. Strings 1 through 3, first inversion. Strings 2 through 4, root position. Strings 3 through 5 is second inversion, and strings 4 through 6 is first inversion again. We could do 4-note voicings. This is probably familiar as the top of your regular E type bar chord. And then you got the middle of it. So this one is root position. This is second inversion, and then this one is not so comfortable to play. I'm hitting 2 notes with my middle finger, but it can be done. And then you could do a 5-string shape here. The 5-string shape that you would make with this one is kind of impossible to play, so I would never really play that, but it would be that. So then moving to the next inversion, I'll do the same exact thing starting from the top. I've got a second inversion triad on strings 1 through 3, first inversion triad on strings 2 through 4, root position triad on strings 3 through 5, and then second inversion triad on strings 4 through 6. And I can do a 4-note shape here, first inversion, I can do one there, root position, and then second inversion. And then I could do a 5-note shape there. And I could do, this one is kind of also not very possible, so I can't even really play it. I can sort of do it with my pinky barring that, but it's not important. The 3- and 4-note shapes are really the ones that are the money makers here. So the way I would practice these in time would be to start at the top or the highest chord voicing of the 3-string voicings and go down through and back up and then hold and then move up to the next shape. Then move up to the next shape. And then I would change keys and do it in a different key. To practice these as arpeggios, I would go from the bottom up to the top of the chord pattern and then add the note that's next in the chord on the first string in order to round it out and get us back to the beginning in a good rhythm that sounds good. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4. I'll do that slowly. 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then I go up to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A note before I move on to the next shape is that in this arpeggio pattern, I'm doing a little bit of an odd fingering just to put myself in the right position for the second octave. I'm going up third finger, first finger, and then I'm moving my third finger to the next note, which is the same fret on the fourth string as I was on with my first finger on the fifth string. So then that puts me right in position to play the top portion of this arpeggio, and on my way back down, I'm going to use my first finger to change so that I have room to move down to the ninth fret at the sixth string. So that whole shape again. The next shape up, 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how I would practice those as arpeggios. And finally, I'll just show you how I would practice the scale patterns that surround these chords. Scales are important to practice. Obviously, you normally, see them practice like this or something of that nature where you're going from the lowest string to the highest string. I often suggest that it's more helpful and more useful to find the scale tones that surround chord shapes that you already know, because then you're going to be able to move into a chord shape and then have access to basically a box of an area that all the notes and you can make it sound good. So that's kind of the way I think about improvisation. I also use scalar patterns that are more traditional, but this is a great way, especially if you sometimes have trouble getting lost in the neck somewhere. These chords act as really excellent guideposts for finding your way around. So starting here, I'm going to do a little pattern, a little scale pattern here. I'm going to go from the 5 to the 6 of the scale, 5, back to the open string, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm going to play the next chord down. I'm going to do the same pattern, except I'll be skipping the 7th note of the scale in these patterns, but it's just for ease of the way it lands on your hands. So I'm on the strumming the chord, and I've got the 3 on top, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5. And then I'm going to play the first inversion triad, and then my 1 is on top, so I'm going 1, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3. And this next one is a bit tricky fingering wise, but I am using my pinky, my fourth finger, my second finger, my first finger to play this triad. And that's a little bit of a weird grab, but that's because I want to play that note with my third finger. I've got the 5 on top. I'm going 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So all together, 3, 4. And then I would practice that for the other 2 shapes. So we've got this one here. I'm going to do the same thing. And then for my last shape, that funky fingering shows up there again. And once you get comfortable with those, what you can do is come up with interesting rhythm parts. You can use these chords in your leads or solos. So here's just a quick example. If I just play around with the notes that surround these, and I can move horizontally as well as vertically through these three shapes. The key of that I'm in, the key of A at this point, becomes wide open to me. I can play I've got all these options. I can go, because it repeats after the 12th fret, so it's just it really, I think it simplifies what it looks like to just sit in one key. So if you're going to change keys, which you should do with these patterns, you're just going to find the root note in each shape, in the shape that you're in, and then move that to the desired key, or the desired note of the key that you want to play in. So if I'm in A here, and I'm feeling real comfortable with this shape, if I want to change it to C, I would go up, this is A, on the 6th string, I would go up to B flat, to B, and then to C. And now I've got this shape here, and I could follow it up through all three shapes. And go back to the first shape that I started with an octave up, and now I've got that whole range of C major available to me. Okay, so last things, you can change this to minor by lowering the third in any of these shapes. They work just the same. And maybe I'll go into that in a future lesson if people like this lesson and find it useful. So that's all I'm going to cover for now. I'm going to record some shorts that show some different ways you can practice these and release them over the next week. At least that's my intention. So keep an eye out for those. That's going to be on my YouTube channel. If you're watching on the website, they'll be available on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll see how that goes. So I hope this was helpful to you. I don't think that it's too big of a claim to say that these are the most fundamental. I can say honestly and truly that these are, in my playing, the most fundamental patterns, because they expand to major, minor. You can do them for the other types of triads, like your diminished and your whole tone. Although whole tone is quite easy. I mean whole tone, augmented. But then if you look at seventh chords from the perspective of the fact that they have triad in them, a triad in them, every seventh chord has some type of triad inside of it, and then a root note on the bottom. That's kind of how I think about it. These triad shapes become extremely useful, and you start being able to use them to discover great seventh chord voicings and really go further with them. But when I'm playing over chord progression, I'm following these basic patterns, and it's super helpful because it maps out each key or each chord. If I want to play, really outline every chord, I can do that with these patterns. So I don't think the claim is too big that these are the most fundamental. They're at least the most fundamental for me in my playing and in my experience. And I've found that when people learn these shapes, it really simplifies things on the guitar, which can be a bit cryptic and hard to see through the patterns of the instrument. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. You can check out my site, practicemakesbettermusic.com, to check out a course that I've released called Guitar Synergy that goes deep into these patterns. So anyway, hope you have a good one. Bye.